It's an historically hideous season.
It's our 100th ugly house.
And if these walls could talk.
Do you cry a lot?
I do.
Ugliest House in America season premiere Wednesday at 8 on HGTV.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits. From sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and good evening and welcome. And here is some of and what you're going to learn. And if you tune in to and tonight's program, I got to stop saying and. Here's the lineup tonight. Can you think of anything worse than a calendar invite for a workplace offsite meeting? You know, with trust falls and icebreakers. But what if skipping it is a bad idea, costing you opportunity in the workplace? In 10 minutes' time, you'll learn why terrible work retreats might be the secret to a great career. Then after that, whether you realize it or not, AI voice cloning is everywhere. It's in music, it's in commercials. I promise I'm not using it right now. But what are the impacts of creative work when anyone can use an artist's voice? That's a tricky question, and one we'll tackle on the show halfway through the hour. Now, that is some of tonight's lineup. There will be more, but for now, let's dive in. And with so much horrific news going on in the world, we want to cover on this show only the most important stories that you need to know about, things that will help you get through your day. To that end, we are joined by foreign correspondent Tony Five in London, England, to talk about a Norwegian golf course. See, we're always relevant for people, Tony. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, David. Good afternoon, David. Good New Year, David. Happy New Year, my friend. How are we?
I am doing very well. Thank you for wishing me a Happy New Year, even though we spoke last Friday. And happy end of In-Betwixtmas, that eerie time between Christmas and New Year's. We're back in business. Everyone's back in the office. They've had time off, or they've been going into work where other people had time off. If they worked in retail, it's the most busy time of the year. Everyone has had their work turned upside down, and now things are back to normal. But are they really back to normal at a Norwegian golf course?
It's that clear-headedness of the fogginess of Christmas and war, I guess. It's all a bit crazy. Everybody's going back, and it's just like there. But David, I want to talk about a man who is inspired.
Yeah, we got to get back to the Norwegian golf course. The important news, the top headline for the day that other news networks aren't covering, and I don't know why. Maybe it's a conspiracy.
I don't know why they haven't covered this, David. This is a man that I admire, I look up to, and I respect. He is a man of sheer will, determination, David, and motivation. A man in Stavanger, which is in Norway, at a golf course, has consistently, and I use the word consistently, defecated, pooped in holes in a golf course for the last 20 years, David.
20 years and they haven't caught the midnight, I don't know, midnight yucker? I mean, I'm trying to think of a name for this guy that's not going to get us in trouble.
He's actually got a name. They've named him the Poopy Man. The
Poopy Man. Oh, leave it to the Norwegians. I wonder what the translation was from Norwegian to English with Poopy Man.
I don't know, Le Poopy Man?
Yeah, I think that's French, but hey, what do I know?
Okay, well, anyway, the groundskeeper is absolutely furious. He only selects a number of holes, he does, and he's consistently done it. They did find some cycle tracks, but they've never actually caught this guy. And again, when you say guy, they say guy because of the consistency of the droppings that are left. So they don't think it's a woman.
Are you telling me they can detect the gender of the midnight I had to. Based on the size of what he leaves behind?
I think it's just an assumption they made. Again, we don't know. It could be a woman, but apparently it's a guy who keeps doing this. They think it's somebody that either hates golf or hates the golf course. But what an amazing way to protest!
But to that end, the club has tried to deter this fellow by installing high-powered floodlights.
Yep.
Why don't they get cameras? Or did they have cameras and it's just too blurry, too zoomed in, too far away?
I guess the cost might be prohibitive, but yeah, they put floodlights in. And again, he only does it in the actual holes. I don't think he's got a favourite hole, like the number 9 or number 11 or whatever, but he does it, and they've never caught him, and he's been doing it for 20 years. You'd think after year 3, they'd do something a little bit more hardcore, but now we're in the second decade of him doing it. It is ridiculous, right?
And the motive, like it could be someone who hates golf, hates the golf course, has a vendetta. They've even suggested that the person could be a fetishist, like someone who's getting off on this, socially deviant, illegal behavior. Could be someone with mental illness. They just don't know.
Well, absolutely. Actually, reading a little bit more into the article, they did introduce the floodlights, but he got up and dismantled it. He took out the bulbs. So one of the reports saying they couldn't believe he didn't get electrocuted.
Fair enough. Wow, this guy truly is a Norwegian hero, like sort of like Robin Hood. Instead of robbing the rich and giving it to the poor.
Yeah, it doesn't do much of else. Just goes into golf holes and doesn't give anything back to the community. Yeah, exactly like Robin Hood.
Straight from Norway. I'm sure a lot of news shows are reporting about all the horrible things in the world, but this was the news you really needed to know, and that's why we're here on the show.
I believe CNN are leading with it tomorrow, David.
That's the hope. We just beat them to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
January. It is really, like we were mentioning earlier, the start to getting back to your normal routine, except the days are shorter, it's colder, you've got that post-Christmas, post-New Year's hangover. It is like, if you're going to get any kind of seasonal blues, January blues, they call it, now is going to be the time. How are you feeling?
I think I do have the January blues. It's very cold here. It snowed here last night. You just want to stay indoors. You want to cuddle up like a bear. You don't really want to do anything. Weirdly, in the UK, they coined the phrase Blue Monday, which is the Monday in January. I think it was created by some marketing whiz in a travel company. And it's this year, it's on January 19th. And it's the day that is the furthest away from your payday in December. So you're essentially, you're struggling with a bit of money. You've splurged all over Christmas and New Year. The weather's not very nice. It's dark. You've been in work for a couple of weeks. And that's the day, they always call it the most miserable day of the year or most depressing day of the year. Do you have that over there?
I mean, yes, I don't think we've tagged it Blue Monday, but I as you were talking about it, I did a little research. I did a little back-end Googling.
Nice.
And it was first introduced by a psychologist at Cardiff University.
That's right.
And he introduced it in 2005. Do you know what else started in 2005?
David, you might have hit the nail on the head. The Phantom Poopy Man.
Exactly. That golf course in Norway. Maybe it was a way for this professor. I mean, allegedly. I don't want to make any accusations, but
yes.
First coins the phrase Blue Monday in 2005. The golf course in Norway starts receiving, packages in their holes in 2005. Could it be the same person? Is that enough of an evidential link?
David, I think we might need to get this professor from Cardiff on the show and just interrogate him and ask him if he likes golf. First question, do you like golf?
Anyway, back to Blue Monday. Yeah, I mean, we do have seasonal affective disorder here.
Yeah, I guess there are some different ways.
It is cold and snowy here. I think everywhere around the world gets it, except for in Australia when it's in June or whatever.
And I think a lot of people who live in the Nordic countries, they don't get it because they're used to it all the time. They get like 12 hours of darkness sometimes in their go. And some of them places, I know in some Nordic countries, like the highest rates of depression, but they've developed sort of ways and means to get around it, spending time with family and friends and developing a sort of cozy culture, which I find quite interesting.
Have you tried a sad lamp? That's one of those lamps you put on your desk so you can bask in fake sunlight.
In fact, I have one because of you.
Oh.
So many, many years ago, you advised me to get one, and I got one of these little light panels that fires sort of, like you say, sunlight at you. I did try and get a sad lamp once, but I knocked it over when it was too bright in the morning and it broke. And that made me sad.
Do you find the lamp helpful? Like, what do you do when you experience the January blues? You just try to take a deep breath and say, this too shall pass? Like, what are some of your strategies?
It's very difficult. This too shall pass. I struggled today waking up and just wanting to stay in bed under the covers and not wanting to do anything. But I sort of pulled myself up and said, look, come on, you got to go and do stuff. And it's so easy to put stuff off, like put off work and put off eating and put off doing anything. But yeah, I think you've just got to sit back and go, okay, this will pass. It's not that bad, and it's just the weather and it's just the darkness. And sort of looking forward to things, when it gets brighter, I guess.
Yeah, this weekend I felt it, and what I did was force myself to go on a long walk. We went to the bookstore, me and my girlfriend.
Wow.
We went and got some ingredients for dinner. I just forced myself to leave the house when it was the last thing I wanted to do.
Okay, so you get it as well. And I mean, they say walking, getting out in fresh air, getting out in nature helps. It sort of, grounds you again. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and do all these little things if I can.
Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England, reporting on only the news you need to know from Norway, probably. Tony, thanks for being on the show.
David, always a pleasure, my friend. See you soon.
Up next, you hate them, I hate them, everyone hates them. Workplace office retreats. But unfortunately, attending them might be great for your career. Why? We'll tell you in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose?
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
A work off-site invite hits your inbox and you moan and you groan, not again. But what if those awkward icebreaker activities shape who gets noticed, promoted, pulled into opportunity in the office? Well, new research suggests that these work retreats might matter more than you'd think. You might want to consider going instead of making up some excuse. I'm here with Madeline Kneeland, who's done research in this area. She's a management professor at Babson College. Madeline, welcome to the program.
Thanks, David, and thanks so much for having me today.
Is this familiar for a lot of people? The invite comes in, hey, Friday night, come to some retreat, or over the weekend, you get to hang out with your coworkers and go to some, activity, and people just think, man, I do not want to go to that.
I think that is all too common of a feeling that people have. I do think there are some people who look forward to those. I think there are people who derive energy from it, like, meeting new people. But I don't think that that is the common reaction to an offsite invite. I think a lot of people truthfully feel some dread about it, and maybe know they should go, but aren't necessarily excited for it.
What are some of the reasons people immediately don't want to go to these things? Is it just like, I don't want to spend my free time, I don't want to socialize with my work peers? What are some of the things that come up?
I think there is, of course, for everybody, it's a little bit different. But I think one of the most common things is that it really does pull you out of your typical routine. And that's your work routine. It's taking you away from your productivity on what you are trying to get done for that week or that month. But it also might take you out of your non-work routine. So it might take you away from home for a couple days, take you away from a family. And that can be disruptive. And so that choice of whether I should go or not, really weighs on people.
And that disruption may not actually be a bad thing. That pulling one out of their work routine, maybe even their private life routine with their coworkers, might not be a terrible thing. There might be a good reason why these retreats happen, not just corporations trying to torture us. So when did you first suspect that these might actually be an important thing for people in the workforce?
One of the reasons I started asking questions about this was that I was hearing from a lot of people within organizations. We go to these offsites and I meet new people. And the more I asked around about it, the more leadership I was talking to within organizations basically said, yeah, we assume these work. We assume people are making new connections. And I kept pushing them saying, well, but how do you measure that? How do you know? And there really wasn't good evidence of, is it worth all these people's time and money that the firm is spending to fly people to a different city for 2 days, 3 days, the hotel, the airfare? It's really expensive. And there was no real good empirical evidence. And so we decided to, with my co-author, Adam Kleinbaum, think about, can we actually measure the impact of attending an offsite for these people in terms of their organizational network?
Can we measure the impact? I think that's the open question, and that's what I want to drill into. Networking events, they feel awkward or gross to us, but beneath social discomfort is often learning.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the ways in which these work? What are some of the ways in which you've observed that these offsites or retreats are really helpful to people?
So I think that when a lot of people think about networking, they think about it in terms of job seeking, right? Like if I'm trying to get a new job, then I put on my networking hat and I go out and I meet lots of people. It's a means to an end. But there's really important networking that happens in terms of actually getting your job done, like within the job that you have, figuring out where the resources within your organization are and who knows what. Those are really important pieces to doing your job and doing your job well. And so when you attend an offsite and you're exposed to people who you don't typically see and you are outside of your typical routine, you have an opportunity to talk to people and learn about what is it that they work on, what is their expertise, what are they good at, and also who they are as people. And that is equally as important, is understanding what it would be like to work with this person. Do I get along with them? And those types of conversations might not even be work related. And so having a meal with someone, going for, a walk to a coffee shop that you may never do on your typical day can open up new conversations and new opportunities that you might not have previously encountered.
I'm imagining meeting someone from a different department and then at a future date needing something from that department and not knowing how to get it, like, needing some function performed by it. And, I remember that person I met at the retreat. And you can actually measure that. You can map who collaborates in an office before a retreat and after. Is that something you did? And if so, what did you observe?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did exactly that. We were looking at lawyers who take meticulous records of who they work with and who they bill hours with. And we looked at their collaboration patterns before the offsite and then directly after the offsite. And we looked at how those changed, particularly for attendees and the people who chose to attend the offsite. And what we found is that people were actually making new connections. We're working with people that they hadn't worked with before. And that was particularly true for people outside their department, as you just said, outside of their practice group in this law firm. And they were starting these new formal collaborations. So I'm not just saying like, I met David and we had a coffee. These are real billable hours that they are billing to clients. So this represents work that is getting done in the firm, relationships that did not exist prior to that offsite.
One finding from your research that I love, I can still be a curmudgeon and not go to an offsite knowing that there could be a great benefit, because you saw people who skipped out on them still collaborated more afterward. The positive effects of these retreats really were within the whole organization, regardless of who attended or not. So is that good news for me? I get to skip them still?
Partially. So there is some good news in that we did see that after the offsite, there was this overall boost in collaboration. That was people were starting new collaborations, even if they didn't attend the offsite. So in that way, yes, that's good for you. You get to start new collaborations, even if you didn't attend. But what was less likely to happen for you if you didn't attend was that people were less likely to find you. And so there's some asymmetry there in terms of your network. What you were describing earlier of, the person who I might need for that functional expertise in a different department, that's kind of you seeking something out. But when you go to an offsite and you have those conversations about, the type of work that you enjoy, or maybe your hobbies, that might make it easier for people to find you for your expertise. And that was the particular benefit that we saw for people who attended an offsite.
Fine, I'll go as long as it's not an escape room, although that's a conversation for someone else. I'm not a fan. What about for remote or hybrid workers, people who don't go into an office very often? Is it particularly useful for them to go on a workplace retreat?
So we didn't specifically look at that. We were looking at mostly people who were going into the office, but the firm that we studied was geographically dispersed. So these were people from different cities who outside of this office would not have just run into each other in the hallway. And so in thinking about how do you create connections, whether people are, on opposite coasts or just down the hallway, or maybe being in the office different days, offsites are one way that you can kind of spark those new connections and new relationships.
I keep representing myself as someone curmudgeonly who doesn't want to go to offsites. But the fact is, you've convinced me, for someone else who's listening, who's still thinking like, oh man, I do not want to go to my next offsite with work. What would you say to them?
I would say that you take some of the pressure off yourself and realize that a lot of people probably don't want to be there. And so even having those conversations that aren't necessarily about work, about finding people who might have that in common with you of like, hey, this is really draining for me. And, I would rather be watching, F1 this weekend. Well, maybe they are too. Maybe that's a point of connection then that you have now found some compatibility with each other, that in the future, when you're thinking about, hey, who might I want to work with? You have this common point to fall back on and build that foundation of a relationship.
Madeline Kneeland is a management professor at Babson College. Madeline, thanks for talking to me about your research. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks so much, David.
Coming up next, AI voice cloning. It can make your computer sound like anyone. But when it does, who's responsible for what it says? Where does creativity end and something uncomfortable begin? Let's talk about that in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Right now, when you walk into a Burlington, you're walking into deals on top of deals during our Oh Wow Winter Clearance event. That's main character energy. Wow. Find tons of markdowns up to 70% off other retailers' prices on clearance items. Because at Burlington, the deals aren't the only thing turning heads. Save at our Oh Wow Winter Clearance event now. Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else?
Burlington Deals brands wow.
Styles and selection vary by location.
Your procrastination deserves a destination. Welcome to the last show with David Cooper.
AI voices can now sing, speak, and sound exactly like us. But when a voice becomes code, who's really being heard and who's pulling the strings behind the mic? Well, that is what we're going to discuss here with professor at the Westminster School of Arts, Hussein Boon, who's recently written on this topic. Hussein, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, David. Glad to be here.
So at like a basic level, where are we at with AI voice cloning? I asked this question kind of knowing the answer, but those who don't realize how good it is, both in spoken word and in music, will be a little shocked to hear where we're at.
Well, I'm going to take you back to 2016 with DeepMind. DeepMind have a thing called WaveNet, which, as one of my colleagues said, what is it with computer scientists naming things like Skynet, WaveNet,
DeepMind, yeah. That was a Google AI project that was in its infancy.
Well, yeah, it started off as a separate venture.
Got it.
Google bought it, but they did things like the chess, they did Go. They've kind of defeated humans at all of these kind of game playing and complex game playing and strategy approaches. But they had a thing called WaveNet, and WaveNet is essentially it's primarily a voice application that splits 1 second of audio into 10,000 partials, which can then be recombined in lots of different ways that is very difficult to detect the source. So this is really interesting from a forensics approach if you were trying to decide whether something was either a deep fake or really a human being, because it's pretty much indetectable. And the thing about WaveNet is that it has the capacity, they've trained it on 44 different languages and local dialects as well. And that was in 2016. So this was before the arrival of the voice coding ones like 11 Labs or the Joe Biden robocalls that went out during the election, persuading people not to go out and vote for Joe Biden because they'd already won the election.
And several years before OpenAI launches ChatGPT, and then all of a sudden AI is in the hands of the average consumer.
But WaveNet still isn't out there. I think the goal with WaveNet is really for like mobile communications, instant translation, where you can just speak to someone in real time. Quite a few people, especially on the complex dialects, especially ones, say in India, native speakers have said they can't really detect a difference between the machine and a native speaker in terms of that. But they've had that technology since 2016, but they've not really done anything with it, or at least as far as they've made known to us.
Got it. But there are products now like 11 Labs to do voice cloning. There are products like Suno to make music that like is structured like a pop song and sounds pretty close. I mean, it's still in that uncanny valley of doesn't quite sound real, but it's getting there.
Of course, but the thing that you'll notice about most of the songs is most songs are usually no longer than 3 minutes in length. So if you look at that AI artist, Zanya Monet, that was signed recently to Hallwood Media and is in all those Billboard articles about it. Most of the songs are like 2 minutes 59, 3 minutes and 1 second, right? They're all within this very close range. And the problem is that you kind of have a maximum kind of token length that it can generate, and 3 minutes seems to be about it at the moment.
So no Inagata Davida album version by Iron Butterfly that's 17 minutes.
You're not going to have any Iron Butterfly or Tangerine Dream or anything else at the moment.
Yeah.
So all of that kind of head stuff where you might sort of trip out for a half an hour, it ain't going to happen with AI. But the thing is that the problem with the context window is that you end up with this kind of this sort of model drift. So what happens is it starts to lose the plot, as it were. The longer it goes on for, it starts to sort of lose its focus and starts inventing new things. So this is really kind of a really big problem for AI in terms of music, that you are sort of stuck within quite sort of short songs. You can't do any sort of long, trippy, no one's going to do any sort of Paranoid Android or anything at the moment or anything else like that. Or 10-minute kind of remixes. And if you are going to do them, you're going to have to essentially chain them up and do them in kind of parts.
Sequence.
Which is the way that lots of people have written songs in that way before. Genesis's Supper's Ready is basically a loose collection of 7 or 8 shorter pieces of music with interlinking parts.
Now let's talk about voice cloning aside from music. Like I played with, maybe I was allowed to or not, I went on 11 Labs' website and I played with Don LaFontaine's voice, who's the famous movie announcer from the 90s.
Yeah.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, any movie preview from the 90s and early 2000s where it started with "In a World," where that was Don LaFontaine. It sounds perfect. Same with I also tried it with James Earl Jones, and it was surprisingly accurate.
Yeah.
What kinds of folks are using this kind of technology? Is it being used in TV commercials, in movies? Like, where is it being deployed?
It's being deployed in lots of different ways. I mean, there's some of the stuff that I've sort of encountered, and you're probably kind of like this in some ways, I hope. But the thing is that I've seen AI examples where, say, a documentary segment has been done in a more regional kind of voice in terms of like Chicago. And then the same documentary is then played back using, say, an English received pronunciation voice. And listeners deem the English version to be more authoritative. And I think this is really the thing that you are looking at when you use those voices. They have a certain weight and gravitas to them, that whatever the thing is you're kind of talking about or pushing or peddling or whichever side of the divide you want to be on, you can have an authoritative voice deliver it for you.
Without these tools, maybe also with them, voice is such a big part of one's identity as a speaker, one's identity as a musician. When that gets lost, distorted, easy to clone, totally detached from a body, like what happens? I feel like deep questions about our identity get asked here.
Well, that is a deep question, but can I do a little sort of like sideways?
By all means.
So, do you know the musician Imogen Heap?
Of course.
All right. So Imogen Heap has these things called the Mimu gloves, which are basically a hand glove technology that can control instruments and so on and so forth. She uses them in performances. I've got some, and when I work with the group, there are people in the group who do American Sign Language, ASL, and they use the gloves to give voice to those who don't have a voice through American Sign Language, like if they're mute. And the thing is what you'll find is that whilst we have one side of AI technology where it's kind of taking voices, in another one they're giving voice to people who don't have voice, and these voices are regionally accurate. So if you come from a particular part of the States or Canada or the UK,
sure,
it will be local to that region and it will age with you.
I like that you're giving the positives before we get into some of the negatives here.
Well, one has to, the thing about AI is that there's a thing that's called a floating signifier. On the one hand, it can be disaster. It's going to destroy the world, la, la, la. And then you go, but then it might find a cure for cancer. It will provide voice for these people here. If you think of one of the original kind of future thinkers like Ray Kurzweil, who was pretty much a genius at the age of 14. Right. So Ray Kurzweil, Ray Kurzweil invented the handheld digital scanner reader.
Yes.
Right. So blind people were just like, this is amazing. Stevie Wonder heard about it and he said, I have to meet this guy. And of course, he finds out he's a musician as well. So they develop instruments together, like Kurzweil instruments. But the thing is that if you see the documentary on Kurzweil, the more recent one, you'll see all of these deaf or visually impaired people sort of saying they can't wait to see what he does next with AI, because they say if they can be rid of the cane and be rid of all of these other sort of symbolic and factors that sort of mark them out as somehow different, if they're able to navigate a room because the AI has mapped it and is in their ear just telling them what's going on.
I'm here with Hussein Boon, a professor at the Westminster School of the Arts. We're talking about AI voice cloning. When we come back, AI can clone a woman's voice in seconds. But when that happens, who controls that woman's voice, profits from it, and decides what it says? That's a discussion we'll get into after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The human algorithm, where emotional inputs create unexpected outputs. The last show with David Cooper.
A sexy female voice talking to you erotically. Well, you can generate it in seconds. It's a bit of an extreme example, but AI can clone a woman's voice very quickly. But who's then at the helm of that female voice? Let's zoom in here with Hussein Boon, a professor at the Westminster School of the Arts. Hussein, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, David.
Female voices being cloned in music, in speech, in commercials. We can put like a female voice at the helm of a male producer.
Yeah.
Walk me through that dynamic. At first glance, it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with that.
No, it doesn't. But the interesting thing, I think there's something of a gender divide in terms of, that my research has shown is that kind of female technologists tend to use themselves as the product of the voice, right? So they produce the voice. So whether that's Grimes or Holly Herndon, but there are very few examples of women, say, impersonating men in terms of using technology. There was one that I pointed out in my research, which is the electronic music pioneer, Suzanne Ciani. And she's fantastic. If you've ever seen things like The Stepford Wives and you hear all those bleeps and bloops, that's all Suzanne Ciani. But she's also done things like Close Encounters and various other things, various other movies. Had a very successful media business. So whenever she needed to have a kind of a male voice, she could artificially create one. This is before AI. But the thing that we have now in terms of the male producers, it's not really just voice, it's the construction of the whole entity. So if you look at someone like Timbaland, he creates Tata, which is his kind of female avatar. She's, purple-haired. She's kind of somewhat Asiatic in terms of the features, in terms of how she looks. And she's singing his songs. That's his music, his words or the words of his collaborators. But what you then have is this kind of, almost kind of like a gamer girl type sort of thing, as the front person, right? And that front person then becomes the channel, the conduit of kind of whatever Timbaland thinks. If it's, let's support this cause, let's not do that cause, it's up to him. It's not really reflective of a female interest or concern.
Well, let's talk about this thing called the male gaze, which is like representation of women in media very much from the perspective of what we think men want. And it may not accurately reflect how women behave or look at all. That can exist in film. It can exist in adult entertainment, which we won't get to because it's a little inappropriate, but it's there.
Well, it's also in games. It's in games, you know.
Very much in games, like, like the GTA series. The women are all look a certain way or whatever.
But here's the thing. I don't mean to stop you there, but here's the thing. It all starts with Lara Croft.
Sure, in Tomb Raider. Yeah.
And the thing is that, there's research, but the reality is that 1/3 of gamers elect to play as a female character, just every day. They elect to play as a female character. So therefore, what we're probably looking at is a kind of an extension of this sort of thing of inhabiting a female-like kind of space, or apparently just outward looking, but actually the internal dynamics are still male.
And what this technology, this AI voice cloning is enabling is kind of like a male ear. Like we can create women in music and in speech and in any kind of art that is no longer involving women at all. It's like these video games are 3D modelers making up, busty, sexy characters. Who knows if they're men or not? Now we can create music with very lifelike voices from that same angle. And there's where I see a problem that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Well, here's the thing. Right. So one of the researchers that I quote, who is Helen Reddington, who's a colleague of mine at Westminster, but she's at the University of East London now. And the thing is that there are particular EQing strategies or her kind of research is around the particular EQ strategies for EQing a female voice over a male voice. So if a female voice has more power in the lower registers, that lower register will be lightened up in terms of EQ so that it places it in a slightly higher register and sort of somewhat disempowers it. So this is what becomes the male ear.
Interesting. EQ, for those who don't know, is like sort of modeling the volumes of a voice in various different registers, making the high end higher, the low end lower.
So amplifying breathiness, right? Even though because that's a characteristic that you want air and you want breathiness, but the reality is that might not be already a representation of how that person sings or speaks. This is already artificial. Already, before we even get to AI, these things have sort of taken root for a very long time, which means that these kinds of strategies, or at least from Reddington's position, are a kind of a disempowering kind of control, because it takes what would be the authority register, takes it away by lightening it. So that women, just stay in the corner, darling. Try not to say anything. Like I'll tidy that up. I'll take care of that. Those sorts of things.
So that sort of already existed, and now we're having
it's already existed,
and that was when we had real singers.
Yes,
one can only imagine where we're at now, when singers can just be generated with a prompt.
Of course, but think about this. Well, of course, but if you've been trained on that material, if your AI has been trained on that material, it will then replicate that type of vocal quality.
Bakes it in. It basically, the model is now trained to be neutral, not overly sexist, not trying to like EQ out women's voices, but they've been trained on this stuff that had these subtle.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting, a little horrifying, but interesting. When male producers use AI to represent women, do you think audiences even notice? Or does the tech and kind of the pomp and circumstance of modern pop music, does it make that imbalance very easy to hide?
I think it goes through the eyes before you really sort of think about it. I think one of the ones, which is I Am Oliver, and all of the sort of female-like kind of avatars that he uses, they all are perky when they are in they adopt particular sorts of poses, like on all fours and various other things, while singing this kind of frothy kind of pop song. No one seems to be disturbed, because in some ways, this is what music videos look like, right? It walks like a duck.
Is there a read here where this isn't a huge problem because it's just reflecting the already existing kind of imbalances?
I think the question is more of, I suppose it's in two ways. One is some women or some female artists present themselves in that kind of way, but that's not necessarily for the whole range of artists. The problem you have then, if you then deal with an AI system that is geared towards the statistical average or norm, then you're just basically going to have stuff that just looks like, on a slightly different platform would actually be porn.
What would you do to course correct this representation of women in music these days with AI voice cloning and this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
Would you want to speak to the authors of the products that allow for voice cloning? Would you want to talk to the users sitting at the desk making music? What would you want to change?
No. The thing about, I suppose there are two things. One is, I'm an advocate that actually everyone should own their own AI. They should have their own models. They should do their own things. It should deviate from the kind of the platform logic that sort of has kind of taken root, as it were.
Where the companies own the algorithm, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, in a presentation I did about 4 years ago, I pointed out that what happens when your model, when they change the model, it no longer functions in the way that, like, your success was based on that previous version, and yet you have no access to that previous version because that was your mojo. The second thing would be in terms of the labeling, for people to actually understand, to be more curious about who is actually pulling the strings, who is behind this sort of thing. Because it doesn't matter whether it's Simon Cowell, Clive Davis, or Sam Altman.
Hussein Boon is a professor at Westminster School of Arts. Hussein, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, David.
Up next, I'm sure you're really busy. You might think you're connected, with your smartphone, but most people barely see their friends. A new survey says we're seeing our friends less than ever. Are friendships shrinking, or is it okay? They're just changing shape.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up an Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
The missing link between scientific journals and relationship counseling. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We all say our friendships matter, so why are they the first things we cancel on plans when life gets busy? Friendship can feel like a logistical nightmare these days, and I don't know, it seems like for many adults, friendships are becoming optional. Family, work, other things take precedence. We're going to discuss this with Professor of Psychology at the University of Toronto Scarborough, Professor Steve Joordens. Steve, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, David. Look forward to the conversation.
So I know the pandemic hit, and then friendships were not only optional, they were kind of like off limits unless you wanted to do a Zoom hangout, which is probably a conversation for another day. But I'm pretty sure the pandemic's over. At least I'm allowed to leave my house. Why are people spending less time with their friends these days? Or are they just spending time differently? Is this not really a real thing?
Well, they are spending time differently, but in a suboptimal way. We spend a whole lot more time on shallow relationships, quick text messages where we feel like we're connecting with somebody and doing things like that, but not really having those rich interactions that really build the psychologically important friendships. Those ones are the ones built on trust. And just to throw something out there really quickly, trust is actually built in a very simple way. When two people are together, and they recognize they're feeling the same emotional state, that makes them trust one another a little bit more. It makes them feel that emotional resonance, which makes that person feel a little safer. You only feel that if you can see the emotions in the other person. So you see it in real-time conversations like we're having. This is where you can develop a sort of trust relationship. Too many people are sacrificing those face-to-face or those, meaningful even phone call where you can hear the tone of the voice, those places where the nonverbals are, and they're turning instead to the much more, dry, asynchronous communication where it's words without emotions, and they feel like that's good enough, and then they find themselves feeling disconnected and lonely and wonder why.
I feel like that's very well put. Back when I had a normal office job, like before I was in media, when I'd be on a video chat with a coworker and they wouldn't turn their camera on, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I'm like, I feel like this is not as good a meeting as if the video was on. I know we're talking about coworkers, but that in-person connection, seeing someone's face, so important. Building deep friendships, though. Are people doing that less nowadays? Like on New Year's Eve, I called about 20, let's be honest, acquaintances, did a quick video chat and said, Happy New Year. I went to bed feeling like I had community, waking up the next day feeling lonely. Maybe I wasn't doing it right. Are we lacking in deep friendships these days?
Yeah, I mean, every time I ask students about friendship, their first question is, well, what's a friend? How do you define a friend? And I have a sort of joke I use sometimes where I say, you have Facebook friends, and then you have friends that'll help you move. Those are good friends. And then you have friends that'll help you move bodies. Those are extremely good friends. We're talking more the latter two categories. Who are the friends where if you really have some crap happening in your life, you're really feeling down under it, that you feel you could reach out and that person would care, that they would listen, that they would, be willing to have that discussion with you. So ask yourself, how many of those people do you have in your life? And the research suggests if you have 3 or 4, you have better mental health, better physical health, better happiness, better long-term just life. Your life longevity increases. It is the silver bullet of psychological variables. And most of us are just sort of sacrificing it for a shallow equivalent that feels kind of okay. But again, we usually end up feeling lonely and disconnected. And we don't really make the connection that's just our body saying you need social connection. But social connection is that rich. 90% of our face-to-face interactions are nonverbal. And that's what we're throwing away. And that's where the real juice is. That's where the honest emotion is. And we really need to be seeing that in order to really appreciate the relationship.
I got to give my mom credit here. She always said, if you throw a party and 1,000 acquaintances show up, that doesn't matter. If you can count your good friends on one hand, you're doing pretty well.
Yep.
Let's talk about how people are spending their time these days. Why are folks spending less time with friends? I feel like I'm guilty and I don't even know why.
I think that's true. I think we don't understand that emotional part because it's so primitive in us. Let me give you a story that I believe is the genesis story of where we got to. And a lot of it comes from text messaging. I'm going to jump on text messaging again. From about 13 years old, as soon as a person gets a phone, text messaging becomes their predominant way of communicating. And that was never the case before. And when they're doing text messaging, you have all the time in the world. And if you talk to young people, they will say, they in fact use that time. They ruminate over what do I want to say? How do I want to say it? Is this just right or not or whatever? And then eventually they release it into the world. And then they wait for a response. Then they ruminate over the response. Do they mean this? Do they mean that? Again, there's no emotional cues. So it gets very difficult to navigate that. Now they find themselves as 18-year-olds sitting in a classroom where they're expected to speak to each other in real time. And they can't do it. We find levels of social anxiety that are just off the charts. The average student in my class has a level of social anxiety that's across the clinical cutoff. And when we talk to them about it, they say, if I try to talk to somebody, it's not going to go well. I don't feel like I'm very good at doing this. That person isn't going to like me. We call all of this a fear of negative evaluation. And they say it's better just not to try. And so they instead retreat back to their cell phone, they'll send a text message to somebody, etc., but they're just not getting what they really need, which is that emotional connection. And it's become really a society level problem now where we see it in all the classes. And at university, we decided, we have to do something. We have to help our students connect because they're not just doing it on their own anymore.
What is that thing? What can be done?
Well, I mean, there's, icebreakers, things like that you can try to do. But really what we're looking at that's most effective is team projects, which students hate to some extent, but making them work together on some project, hopefully that's something good and interesting. So if you can have a good experiential learning project where they're working with an external partner, kind of creating something. My students, I always have them work with Genwell, which is a company that's all about social connection, not a company, a not-for-profit, that's all about social connection. And so I let the students learn about the importance of it and in fact create public service announcements as teams. That's where we find after they do that, a lot of them say, hey, I ended up making friends with those people in my group. But it's like the course had to push them together and get them interacting, get them over that hump.
Well, that's for students. That's for young people. What about folks like my age? I hate to admit, almost 40. What can I do? Or what are some of the creative ways in which people my age are being better friends, doing more in-person stuff rather than just making excuses?
So the first thing to kind of understand is that there's a very important research paper by Nick Epley, a guy who said he went into train stations and he talked to people and he said, there's someone that's going to sit beside you in this train. And what do you think will happen if you just talk to them? And the people say it'll go horribly. About 90% of them predicted terrible outcome. And they say, okay, just do it. Okay, just do it. And some of these people do it. And when they do it, 90% have a positive outcome for both people. And so the first thing to know is your belief that it will not go well is wrong, is completely paradoxical to reality. And so you have to kind of believe that, which is hard, make that step. And that's the trick, is how to convince students, whether it's a good friend or whoever, just to be able to make that step, introduce yourself, and then have a quick little conversation, walk away afterwards, and you'll probably feel like that went pretty well. And we almost have to convince ourselves, okay, we're wrong about that. It does usually go well. And every now and then, if it doesn't go well, big deal. It's not such a horrible thing.
I promise you, I live in New York City. If you did that on an MTA subway train, you would not get a 90% success rate. You'd get a 20% wildest interaction of your life rate, which is also an excitement that I might recommend.
I even bet there it would be better, because I was in New York City, and when you try to talk to everyone, will ignore you, whatever. But if you try to talk to somebody, once they realize you're not asking for money or some kind of wacky person coming at them from some whatever, I find they thaw out pretty well. If you ask a New Yorker for directions somewhere, they will typically, once they realize that's all you're asking for, they'll happily comply.
True. You'll get that wonderful brand of rude and friendly at the same time, which is just makes the city such a great place. Well, Steve, I've enjoyed this conversation with you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Steve Jorgens is a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. Calling all nerds when we come back from the break. 2026's nerd culture predictions. Think video games, movies, what Star Trek series to look forward to. From Marvel, DC, Star Wars, that is the sort of stuff we're going to talk about up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like McKell, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Who doesn't love predicting the future, especially when nerd culture is involved? Well, Kurtis Smejkal from the 3 Angry Nerds podcast is here to hopefully make some bold, reckless, maybe accurate, maybe inaccurate predictions for 2026. Kurtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, David.
So what are some of the biggest nerd culture trends that are going on right now before we jump into what the future may hold for us? I'm a bit of a closet nerd, I'm not going to lie.
Hey, that's totally fine. There's a lot of people like that. I think right now you're seeing a lot of video game adaptations. That's kind of the big thing right now. The Last of Us, which is on Crave, is doing quite well. Then you got stuff like the Minecraft movie, which was like the top grossing movie of last year. And then you also have stuff like the Super Mario Brothers movie, which also made over $1 billion. So
we can't forget Fallout. I mean, I had someone on the show the other day who's like a cool comedian who I did not think of a nerd at all. And she's obsessed with Fallout. Like, These shows are entering the mainstream. I think a lot of people don't even realize their video game origins.
Yeah, and I think, you got Zach Krager, who's making a Resident Evil movie, which is coming out this summer. And I think, more studios are going to start going, well, what what of these properties do we have? You know, what video game properties do we have access to? What can we play around with, and what can we use to make movies and TV shows with? So I think we're already in the midst of that, but I think you're going to start to see more of those as time goes on.
Okay. Any ones that you're particularly excited about for this year?
I mean, the Resident Evil movie I'm particularly excited for. I really enjoy the games. We've got a new game coming out in February, and then, of course, they've got the movie that's coming out, I believe, in September of this year. So, yeah, I mean, Resident Evil, it's a horror game franchise. It lends itself well to cinematic movie storytelling. Zach Cregger is fresh off of Weapons, which did quite well this year, was quite a popular movie. So, you know, I think people low-key don't know that movie's coming. The studio hasn't done a lot of work to like promote it, put out trailers or anything, but I think as we get closer to September, people go, oh, the guy that made Weapons is making a Resident Evil movie? Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to have to start paying attention.
Can we talk about how we're in the golden age of Star Trek right now? It feels like it's the 90s again when we had like Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Next Generation. Nowadays, we got like Lower Decks, we got Discovery, we got Strange New Worlds, and we got this new Star Trek coming called Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Are you a Trekker? Sorry, not a Trekkie, a Trekker. That is what we call ourselves.
Yeah, I have watched some of the shows, but I think I even have lost track of how many new shows there are. So, you know, I've watched a few of them. They're of varying quality. Some are better than others, but yeah, if anything, I mean, you have your wealth of Star Trek content to choose from nowadays.
Cool. Well, Starfleet Academy, I think it's dropping this month. It's like where all the captains and all the officers go to train is where it's set.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge gamer, but there are those among us that are. Any game stuff in the future for us?
There are some good games coming. I mean, I think the biggest one is going to be GTA 6. You know, famously on my podcast, one of my co-hosts says that he's convinced that's not coming out 2026, it's coming out in 2126. I'm a little more optimistic than he is because the game has been delayed a number of times, but yeah, it is supposed to be coming out this fall. I mean, I think somebody said that the game costs more to make than the Burj Khalifa.
That's the tower in Dubai, the highest building in the world? That can't be true. Come on.
Apparently so. I haven't fact checked that as well as I should have, but yeah, apparently that's the case. So, I think, you know, GTA games are kind of the ones where, yes, the core gamers are going to play it, but there's a lot of people who are just casual gamers who maybe don't play a lot, who just really enjoy those games. And those games, like even GTA 5, the last one that came out in like closer to the earlier 2010s. And it's still one of the top selling games. And that's nearly 15 years later. So, yeah, if people are sleeping on how much money GTA is going to make and how popular it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be a very startling fall when that game drops and you start to see all your friends disappearing to play this game.
I wonder if Rockstar Games, the creator of the GTA series, I wonder if they're taking a page out of Nintendo's book, where Nintendo famously will not put out games, often disappointing fans, until they're quote-unquote ready. And what does ready mean? Until Nintendo thinks that they're fully enjoyable to play. They don't really care about release dates. And Nintendo is extremely successful. So I do wonder if Rockstar, is it just a delay, or are they doing it the Nintendo way, making sure the game is great?
A good game is a good game, but a bad game is a bad game forever. It's better to take your time because, I mean, smoothing out those details, fixing minor issues and bugs. Yes, you know, somebody may have to wait 6 extra months to play that game, but I mean, it's going to save that studio and that game a whole lot of conversations that are maybe gearing towards negative conversations just to take that 6 months. So I say take your time, do what you need to do, because I'd rather it be good and it be something that I want to play and something that I'm enjoying playing rather than those bugs and other issues weighing things down.
And in terms of tech, I'm talking like VR headsets, new types of controllers, haptics, weird stuff that we wouldn't consider gamers to use in their house. Do you see any new tech changes for video gaming in the near future?
Oddly enough, I think the hardware sales for gaming have actually dipped. They're actually at the lowest they've been at since 1995. I do think where people are going to maybe migrate to is this more PC central ecosystem. So Steam, Valve, the company that kind of makes Half-Life, and they also sell a bunch of PC games, they're actually coming out with their own console this year. And it's basically just a very stripped down PC that basically you can plug into your TV and play games on there, but that taps into your existing Steam infrastructure in your account. So games that you maybe got on Steam back in 2006 or 2010 or whatever, those are all games that you can play on this Steam machine that's coming out. So I think that's where you're going to see people go to, is this idea of having like freedom of their gaming. You know, you can just go and have access to all these games and play them on your TV. So that's, I think, where people are going to go on the hardware side of things. I just don't think VR has really been making that much of a dent. Sony did come out with a new VR headset, and it just did not sell. It actually has been going on sale quite a bit because at this point, I think Sony's just trying to get rid of it at this point. But yeah, I think hardware is a bit of a tricky thing because people are a little more cautious of where they spend $800-ish on.
I see people like online and videos and companies hyping up their 3D headsets, but I can't think of a single friend that has one except for this one dude that I know that keeps it on his nightside table, and I worry what he does with it. But that's a conversation for another day. Any hot takes or any predictions for next year that are controversial that you might have?
I mean, in terms of video games, I do think that Resident Evil Requiem is going to be probably the better game than GTA. I know a lot of people are excited for GTA, but Resident Evil Requiem is out in February, and I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to do quite well, but oftentimes the games that come out in February oftentimes get forgotten about when people start thinking of what games were really good in November and December. Not necessarily because of the quality of the games, but because they just get forgotten about. So you know, I'm low-key hoping that people will remember Resident Evil Requiem when it comes out, you know, closer to November, December. You know, we had Monster Hunter Wilds that came out this year, and it was a really great game, but by time December hit, people had already forgotten it had come out. And in terms of movies, I mean, I think there's stuff out there that's coming up. You've got Odyssey from Christopher Nolan and other stuff, and I think that's going to do quite well. You know, I think those movies are going to rekindle maybe some love at the box office and get some people to come see more movies. So we'll see what happens.
I love Tenet. No one else seemed to like it. You can watch it in forward and reverse, and it's still just as confusing. But that's, I guess, the most recent Christopher Nolan movie. They're all pretty good. Well, Kurtis, thanks for joining me. You can hear Kurtis Smejkal on the Three Angry Nerds podcast. Kurtis, again, I appreciate you coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, a salacious content warning for sensitive listeners or parents with small children. Sex toys, they're getting smarter. They include AI and they promise pleasure. But with them brings judgment, stigma, social landmines. When sophisticated technology meets desire in sex, things get a little complicated. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Sex toys, AI lovers, and robot hookups. I bring these up because suppose I told you that a friend used them. Would you judge that friend? What if your friend was a woman? Well, new research finds out that men, when they use these things, spark more disgust in people than women for the same sex tech. It sounds strange, but is it a modern twist on the same old sexual double standards? Well, I'm here with someone who's done research in this area. Their name is Madison Williams, and they're an experimental psychology researcher at the University of New Brunswick. Madison, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Your research area, I'm sure it's a lot of things, but it includes one of my favorite words, teledildonics. So let's start there. Can you give me a definition of this amazing word?
Yes, it is a great word. Teledildonics are types of sex toys that can be connected to the internet or Bluetooth to either sync with porn, or it can be synced with another partner's toy. For example, you could have the motions sync up to kind of replicate the feeling of actual penetrative sex.
So it's a modern technological twist on toys that have probably been with humanity since, I don't know, the dawn of time.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk your research. People have stereotypes and impressions and ideas about the types of folks that use these things. Talk to me about what those are, and then we'll get to your research.
Yes, we kind of know from research that most sex toy use is used by women. That's also kind of just because of the toys that are on the market. Vibrators tend to be the device that comes to mind when you think of a sex toy, but there are also devices that can be used by men or people of all genders in any type of way. Vibrators can be used on any part of the body for any reason. So although research is focused mostly on women's use, queer people definitely are using lots of them. Men are starting to also come around to them, and we can see that these toys are actually beneficial for people of all genders.
Great. I mean, obviously they would be beneficial. They're fun. They're meant to be enjoyable. Let's talk about what we think of others. Maybe not you, maybe not me, but some of these negative stereotypes that people shouldn't have, but these negative stereotypes that come up when we find out folks use these toys.
Yeah, all users of sex toys tend to be stigmatized, meaning that they're just judged a little bit more harshly. And my research in particular has found that all users of sex toys or sex tech in general are viewed as disgusting, but men are viewed as more disgusting, as are users of more advanced types of sex tech. So if you compare a user of a sex robot to somebody who's a sex toy, the sex robot user is judged a lot more harshly and more negatively.
So if someone has like a 3D headset, robot involved, extremely high technology setup, they're likely to be judged worsely than someone who's just got a little toy in the drawer, is what you're saying.
Yes, and this is possibly because we just aren't used to seeing people use these types of toys. They're not normalized yet. They're still kind of new on the market. So just this unease with the novelty is maybe contributing to that.
Now, when you say men using sex tech or teledildonics is a little more disgusting to the average person, what is that person reacting to? Is it the technology? Is it the idea of sexuality? Is it the idea of doing an activity alone? The things that they think it says about this man? Like, what are folks reacting to? What is this disgust really under the surface?
It's a good question, and we're not totally sure yet. Some thoughts that I have on it relate to disgust in particular, which is related to pathogen fear. So people avoid things that are contaminated because of disgust. Disgust is an emotion. It's a strong negative emotion that can keep us from getting hurt or sick. So men using sex tech is often associated with fluids and maybe a lack of cleanliness in the toys where ejaculate may be collected. So it could be that, just like a fear of the grossness of a dirty toy.
Interesting.
Yeah. It could also just be that we expect men to perform sexually, to be constantly conquesting for women or for other sexual partners. So the thought of a man using a sex toy is just not what is in line with our expectations, which can give us this kind of disgusted fear response.
Let's get to a kind of a curious double standard here that's negative and that I don't love, but let's talk about it. This cultural narrative that if a woman uses a sex toy, that can mean empowerment, that can mean taking your sexuality in your own hands. But now if a man uses one, it's kind of like seen as a failure or maybe gross. Talk to me about this story psychologically.
Well, we think it might be based in sexual script theory, which often just positions men as these sexual experts, which in itself is not a positive way to expect men to be. Like we should expect men to be anything that they want to be. But having this, it's a societal expectation on men in general. So it applies to all types of sexual behavior, and we think that that's what's coming out in this double standard. And for women to be, there's more of a push for women's pleasure right now. Like women's pleasure is seen as feminist movement, and we're really pushing that female pleasure is important, which it is, but male pleasure is also important. And if that needs a sex toy to happen, then that should be fine. But we're not there yet.
Then have fun, kids, I think is what we should be thinking.
Exactly.
Gender aside, as sex tech becomes more human-like, I'm talking like chatbots that really know you and really talk to you about your fantasy, robots, VR headsets that look real, maybe associated, haptic devices that feel real. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. But as it gets more high-tech, this disgust factor seems to go up. Do you think it's a fear of replacement? Do you think it's this uncanny valley? And the uncanny valley is when things seem almost real when they're not. Is it anxiety about what real intimacy is going to look like with future technology? Or is it all of these things?
I do think it's all of those things combined. And I think we need to keep doing research to figure out what exactly is happening here. But yes, definitely just the novelty in general. People tend to be a bit more hesitant to accept novel anything. So in terms of sex, there's definitely a barrier there. I'm sure vibrators were once also viewed as extremely disgusting, but with time, they've become more normalized. It's become a pretty normal thing just through media exposure and internet, like personalities advertising sex toys. We've come to normalize them. And I think that will happen over time with other devices as well. But they're just so new right now that there's like an immediate gut reaction when you hear somebody say, oh yeah, I sent sex to my AI chatbot. That's not like oh, okay, cool thing yet. It's still kind of stuck there.
Whether we like it or not, unless governments pass draconian laws banning this tech, and I hope they don't, this technology is coming. So any final thoughts about kind of intercepting that initial disgust if someone has it, or things you want people to know about this tech?
Yeah, just talking about it can really improve people's gut reaction to it. I find just telling people that I do this type of research, I'm constantly met with always the same reaction, which is, oh, that's weird. And then you talk to them about, well, no, actually, men who have erectile dysfunction or social anxiety, anybody who has social anxiety or other various types of social sexual deficits, they can really benefit from this type of technology. And it's not just to stereotype weird, creepy men in their basements who are using these tech. It's just really normal people.
Well, if just talking about it can help folks who might benefit from the tech, I'm glad you're here and you talked about it, Madison. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Madison Williams is an experimental psychology researcher at the University of New Brunswick. The people demanded it. Psychology researchers delivered it. A map of the romance in Taylor Swift songs. We'll go over it with one of those scientists and my partner and girlfriend in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The last show with David Cooper, where intimacy meets insanity.
Taylor Swift's songs. What do they teach us? How to love, how to despair, how to really feel that depressing breakup spiral? Well, a new study breaks down the psychology of it all. Romance, heartbreak, even attachment styles, all hidden inside the lyrics of the superstar's musical catalog. To discuss this, we are joined by special Taylor Swift correspondent, my lovely partner, Miranda. Miranda, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
And we are also joined by the author of this paper, McKell Jorgensen-Wells, a psychology researcher at Western University in Ontario, Canada. McKell, what a pleasure it is to have you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. McKell, could you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to study this? Like, why did you want to write a paper on this topic?
So during my master's, I had a friend in the program who studies media. I am a romance researcher. And this was a few years ago, right after like Red, Taylor's version came out. So we were all, listening and we're fans. And she was like, hey, you study romance, I study media. do you want to do a content analysis of the romance in Taylor Swift music? And I was like, of course, it's Taylor.
I got to interrupt and ask, are you sure that your main motivation wasn't just to like do what you love, listen to Taylor Swift, and, you know, do what you do for work at the same time?
Yeah, so I had previously done a content analysis on like other songs. I mean, of course, as a researcher, you want to do stuff that you're interested in, but it's also like, I think it's fascinating to figure out what we learn about romance from different sources, because part of what I study is like, how do we learn about romantic relationships and then figure out how to create healthy ones, you know, once we get older and, you know, like through adolescence and adulthood, how do we learn about romance? And so like it was all of those things combined, you know, like, do we love this? Of course. But we also like are super interested in what messages are we getting. And yeah, so it wasn't just, oh, we'll just throw our not hobby, but you know, it was like, there are scientific reasons, of course.
So what do you think is Taylor Swift's most healthy relationship song?
Ooh, that depends. Some of my favorites, I love Happiness. In terms of handling breakups, I think it's fascinating and like a real mature perspective to be like, there was happiness in my relationship with you, and I'm also going to find happiness now that we're done. Like, I'm sad and this is heartbreaking, but like, I'm going to be okay. So I love that one. I love, this one wasn't in the analysis because this was a few years ago, but Honey from Life of a Showgirl, love that. The concept of like, there are things that people used to say to me in the past that have hurt, but now that I have this person that I feel like I can be myself with, when we're turning those things into positive experiences and like, you know, healing from those past things. Love that song.
That's all fine and well, and the healthy songs I'm sure are great to analyze, but let's have a little fun here. What are some of the more unhealthy, dysfunctional songs in Taylor Swift's catalog?
So, there are so many.
There are so many.
But like, they're such bangers.
They are. I feel like it's like when you're really in your feelings and you're really wanting to just like feel like a victim. I love Taylor Swift. Caveat, but like I feel like her music, it's very self-indulgent for me when I listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever gone through a breakup, and what Taylor Swift song has touched you personally in those times?
Ooh, I am one of those rare humans who has not gone through a breakup.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And you're still such a fan?
Yeah. I know, like, my favorite songs are Would've, Could've, Should've, and My Boy Breaks His Favorite Toys. Like, why are those my favorites?
Would've, Could've, Should've is also my favorite song. It is her best song.
Good.
Piercing behind the veil a little bit, Miranda and I, not for many years, but we have broken up before, and I do feel like you like to listen to Taylor Swift to really get angry and feel those feelings that you may or may not have directed at me.
I do, but Would've, Could've, Should've is so good.
It's so good.
Do you think it's an unhealthy song?
That one is harder. I can't remember how we coded it. I mean, the relationship seems like it was unhealthy.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's like processing, you know, like going through, this is how you hurt me, and like it's still hurting, you know, like I don't think that's necessarily unhealthy. Like those kinds of lyrics, you know?
Yeah, I feel like she's singing that song and she's looking at herself when she was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I shouldn't have done that, but I know better now. And I feel like she has a lot of empathy for her younger self in that song.
Yeah.
What about attachment styles that come up in her songs? I feel like anxious attachment is a theme. Like,
yes.
The Archer.
She's a little needy, I gotta say. Taylor Swift, she comes off a little needy in her songs.
I mean, it's not necessarily that Taylor comes off needy in her songs, but like the persona of the songs often have like anxious behaviors, or they portray anxious thoughts. So like we can't say, oh, Taylor Swift has an anxious attachment, because we don't know Taylor. But the thing, like the messages that we're getting from her songs, that's what we can analyze and talk about.
Now, personal favorite songs, I feel like we have to go there. Ones that you just love looking at from both like your work, but also just love listening to.
Yeah. Would've, Could've, Should've, My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys, Honey, All Too Well 10-minute version is always up there.
It's all too long, if you ask me. Miranda, what?
Oh my God.
No.
I could not.
You're in enemy territory.
I'm sorry.
Get out of here.
I should not have. Miranda, what is your favorite song?
My favorite song is Would've, Could've, Should've. 10-minute
version?
No, that song is only one version.
All right. I should have done more research for this interview.
You could've, should've.
One of the major takeaways for the study, like, are Taylor Swift songs a good model for how to model your romantic relationships, to the listeners' romantic relationships? Or are they too simplistic? Are they too...
Nobody said they were too simplistic.
Yeah, simplistic, no.
I'm asking...
You are putting a lot into this that was not in the article.
Fair enough. What can we learn about our relationships?
Have you listened to a Taylor Swift song?
I've had them played while I'm around.
But do you listen to the lyrics?
Because
they are full of a lot of depth and layers.
All right, I'm starting to realize.
And imagery.
This is less about McKell's paper and more a hit piece about me. That's okay. What can we learn about our relationships from Taylor Swift songs?
I love this question.
I feel like she's kind of a mirror a little bit.
Yeah, so there's this theory in like the media world called uses and gratifications theory, and it talks about how people like use media for different reasons. And so if you're seeking out these songs to be like, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one who has had a toxic significant other, and like other people have felt these feelings too, that's a completely different use of her songs than if you're like, oh, what should I do if I, want to date someone, and you're going to the songs like for guidance. And so it depends on your uses, most likely. There's this whole array of romantic experiences that we get in her lyrics. It's so nuanced. The storytelling is layered.
I have a spicy question. Based off of the information that we get from her lyrics, from her relationship with Joe Alwyn versus Life of a Showgirl, which is about her relationship with Travis Kelce, the relationship she's currently in, which relationship do you think is healthier, just from the material?
Well, so here's the thing. I think we do a disservice to Taylor when we take these songs as like reflections of her romantic relationships, because I don't think that's what she wants. I don't think she wants us to analyze her own relationships. I think the point is that she loves creating art. She uses her experiences to create art. She wants it to be, helpful for us. And so, as a scientist, I can't say anything about her actual relationships because I don't know her. I don't know the men she's dated.
All right, fair enough. Okay.
Well, McKell, thank you for joining me on the show. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
McKell Jorgensen-Wells is a psychology researcher at Western University in Ontario, Canada. And Miranda, my partner, my love. I wish I had a romantic Taylor Swift lyric to quote for you, but I guess I coulda, shoulda, woulda, look that up before the interview.
Could've, should've, would've.
Fair enough. Miranda, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on the night. That's a wrap on the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Last Show podcast. You can find out more details about it on our website. That's at www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. I'm David Cooper. This was The Last Show.
My name is Jordan, and I'd like to invite you to join me on The Canadian Gothic, a podcast covering stories of Canadian crime, mystery, and the offbeat. The Canadian Gothic blends the spirit of late-night talk radio with the depth of a documentary film, and applies that approach to both developing stories and historical cases. So if you're drawn to the dark, mysterious, and offbeat, search for and subscribe to The Canadian Gothic wherever you find podcasts.
You are listening to Canadian Gothic.